Is Donald Trump finally losing evangelical Christians? Spoiler alert, probably not. But he might be losing some evangelical Christians because there is growing evidence that some leaders of congregations as well as organizations are attempting to quiet quit Donald Trump and MAGA. Some churches have seen a trend where pastors are now avoiding political sermons and helping members to disengage from Trump's movement without ostracizing family members who might still be MAGA devotees. Like basically, like, how can you move away from this without triggering people who can be very sensitive about their dear leader? And so you have this guy, Rich Logus, I believe his name is pronounced, a Catholic ex-Trump supporter who founded a group called Leaving MAGA, who says, we've gotten more testimonials. I'm starting to now see Leaving MAGA signs popping up on billboards, overpasses, and at No Kings protests. Leaving MAGA has apparently seen an uptick in downloads of its manual advising readers how to gently urge family members to quit MAGA. Apparently their subscribers have jumped from 1,500 earlier this year.
Okay, so September 20th, 2025, that's the day everything blew up. And I mean everything, because that's when we found out that Tom Homan, Trump's border chief, the guy who's been front and center of this administration's immigration crackdown, allegedly took $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents. $50,000 in exchange for government contracts. Like, come on, are you kidding me right now? And here's the thing, this isn't just some random staffer. This is Tom Homan, the border czar, the guy Trump put in charge of one of his signature issues, the person who's been all over conservative media talking about law and order and securing the border and draining the swamp. Yeah, that guy, allegedly taking bribes from people he thought were business leaders, trying to score contracts tied to Trump's second term. Can you believe this? The irony is it's almost too much. Almost. But wait, it gets better or worse. Depends on how you look at it.
35,000 is not a ton in a country of over 300 million, but it does make a difference to some families, some social groups, and perhaps that momentum can continue on, especially as Donald Trump continues to deteriorate physically and mentally. Eventually, once he becomes a lame duck, maybe that's an opportunity for people to finally see some sense and to move in a different direction. And by the way, the Epstein files, that wasn't the only reason that some of these pastors apparently want to move away from MAGA. Some are saying that images of federal agents grabbing U.S. citizens or unauthorized immigrants, that might be one thing. Again, it's stuff that he was being very clear he was going to do, but actually seeing the reality, I think seeing the brutality that Donald Trump has unleashed on all these different communities, maybe that can work to get through to these congregations in the same way it's getting through to a lot of voters. I don't know. Maybe, Sharon, you think it's likely?
It's probably not likely, but I think it could maybe be a good idea. Look, it's one thing to say it.
The very next day, September 21st, Trump's own Department of Justice shut the whole investigation down, just closed it. FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche put out this joint statement saying there's no credible evidence of criminal wrongdoing. None. Zero. Investigation over. Move along, folks. Nothing to see here. Yeah, right. So, let me get this straight. The FBI, the actual FBI, runs an undercover sting operation. They catch a top Trump official allegedly taking 50 grand in cash, and then less than 24 hours later, Trump's hand-picked DOJ leadership just waves it all away just like that. No charges, no accountability, just a quick statement, and everyone's supposed to forget about it. This is wild. Like, this is actually insane when you think about it, because this is the same administration that ran on draining the swamp. Remember that? Drain the swamp, lock her up, law and order, all of it. And now we've got credible allegations of bribery at the highest levels, and the response is nothing. Crickets. Well, not crickets exactly, because what happened next is where things get really interesting. See, Trump's inner circle, they're not handling this well at all. In fact, they're completely falling apart. Former Pentagon advisors are leaking to the press, saying the White House is in full-blown meltdown mode. Trump allies are publicly blaming each other, pointing fingers, throwing people under the bus. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash, except the car is on fire, and everyone inside is fighting over who gets to jump out first. And the conspiracy theories, oh man. Far-right Trump associates are all over social media, claiming this is a deep state hit job, a political attack, a setup. Even though, and let's be clear here, it was Trump's own FBI that ran the operation, his own DOJ that shut it down. But sure, deep state, whatever helps you sleep at night. Here's what makes this story absolutely critical right now. We're heading into election season. Primary season is heating up, and this scandal just blew up any credibility Trump had left on corruption and accountability. The guy who promised to drain the swamp is now defending swamp creatures taking cash bribes. The party of law and order is covering up federal investigations into their own people. This isn't just bad optics. This is a five-alarm fire for Trump's political future, because voters, even MAGA voters, they care about corruption. They care about honesty. They care about whether their leaders are actually fighting for them or just lining their own pockets. And right now, the optics are terrible. So yeah, Tom Homan allegedly took $50,000 from undercover agents. The Trump DOJ killed the investigation. And now Trump's inner circle is eating itself alive as everyone scrambles to avoid being the next person blamed for this disaster. Leaks everywhere, infighting everywhere, trust collapsing in real time. And we're just getting started, because when you dig into what actually happened here, when you look at the timeline and the players and the decisions that were made, it gets so much worse, like exponentially worse. This isn't just one guy taking a bribe. This is a pattern, a system, a culture of corruption that goes all the way to the top. And you know what the craziest part is? Nobody seems shocked anymore. Like, we've become so numb to Trump administration scandals that a literal bribery case involving a cabinet-level official barely registers for half the country. They just shrug and move on. But this one is different, because it's not just about the crime. It's about the cover-up. It's about how fast they move to shut it down. It's about what it reveals about how power actually works in Trump's Washington. The people who are supposed to enforce the law, the FBI, they did their job. They investigated. They gathered evidence. They built a case. And then the political appointees at the top, Trump's guys, just killed it. Just decided that laws don't apply to their team. And that should scare the hell out of everyone, regardless of your politics, regardless of whether you love Trump or hate him. Because if the president can just shut down investigations into his own people, then nobody is really accountable to anyone. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is going to blow your mind. Alright, so let's back up and really understand what happened here. Because the surface level story, Tom Homan takes money, DOJ shuts it down, is bad enough. But when you actually dig into the details, when you see how this whole thing unfolded, it's so much more disturbing than you think. First, let's talk about the FBI operation itself. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. This was a planned, coordinated, professional undercover scheme. FBI agents posed as business leaders, rich guys looking to cash in on government contracts during Trump's second term. And they approached Tom Homan, the border chief, one of the most powerful people in the administration when it comes to immigration policy and enforcement. And according to the reports, Homan didn't hesitate. $50,000. That's what it took. 50 grand. And suddenly these fake businessmen had access, had promises, had allegedly agreements for contracts worth way more than that initial payment. This is how corruption works, folks. You don't bribe someone for the fun of it. You bribe them because you're going to make millions off the back end. Now, here's where most people get the story wrong. They think this is just about one bad apple, one guy who got greedy, one isolated incident. But that's not what this is. Not even close. Because the FBI doesn't run undercover stings on random hunches. They don't invest time and resources and manpower into operations unless they have reason to believe there's something bigger going on. So the real question is, how many other people were they looking at? How many other Trump officials were part of this investigation before it got shut down? Because I guarantee you, and I mean absolutely guarantee you, Tom Homan wasn't the only target. He was just the one we found out about. Think about it. The FBI has limited resources. They can't investigate everyone. So when they decide to run a complex undercover operation like this, when they put agents in the field pretending to be businessmen, when they wire people up and record conversations, they're doing it because they have solid intel. They have tips. They have reasons to believe that corruption is happening at scale. That's not a small thing. That's not a casual decision. That's months of planning and approval processes and oversight. And all of that gets thrown in the trash the moment Trump's DOJ decides to shut it down. And then September 21st, less than 24 hours after the news breaks, Kash Patel and Todd Blanche, Trump's guys, put out that statement. No credible evidence of criminal wrongdoing. Investigation closed. And look, I want you to really think about what that means. The FBI, a law enforcement agency, gathers evidence of a potential crime, and then the political appointees at the top of the Justice Department just overruled them. Just decide, no, we're not going to pursue this. Come on, are you kidding me? That's not how justice is supposed to work. That's not blind justice. That's not equal protection under the law. That's, and let's just call it what it is, a cover-up. a straight-up political cover-up designed to protect Trump and his allies from the consequences of their own corruption. But here's the thing that really gets me. Trump ran his entire first campaign on this idea that Washington was corrupt, that politicians were bought and paid for, that special interests controlled everything. Drain the swamp. Remember, that was the whole pitch. And people, millions of people, believed him. They voted for him because they wanted someone who would actually clean house and hold people accountable. And now we've got clear evidence that Trump's own administration is just as corrupt, if not more corrupt, than anything that came before. And when they get caught, they don't apologize. They don't fire people. They don't demand accountability. They just shut it down, bury it, pretend it never happened. The hypocrisy is staggering, like actually staggering. And what makes it even worse is how Trump's allies are responding. Because instead of being outraged, instead of demanding answers, they're circling the wagons. They're attacking the messengers. They're pushing conspiracy theories about the deep state and political witch hunts. Even though, and I can't stress this enough, it was Trump's own FBI that ran this operation, his own appointees, his own people. But somehow, that's still the deep state. Somehow that's still a political attack. The mental gymnastics required to believe that, it's Olympic level stuff. It's actually impressive in the worst possible way. These people will twist themselves into pretzels defending the indefensible just to avoid admitting that maybe, just maybe, their guy isn't the hero they thought he was. And then there's the infighting. Oh man, the infighting is where this gets really juicy. Because what happens when a scandal this big hits? When the walls start closing in, people panic. They start looking for someone to blame, someone to throw under the bus so they can save themselves. Former Pentagon advisors, people who were inside the administration, are now leaking to reporters that the White House is in absolute chaos. Full-blown meltdown is the phrase they're using. Trump allies are publicly blaming each other. Some are saying Homan acted alone. Others are saying this goes higher. Others are saying it's all fake news and nothing happened at all. Nobody can get their story straight. Nobody trusts anyone else. And meanwhile, Trump himself, he's reportedly furious. Not because of the corruption, not because one of his top officials allegedly took a bribe, but because the story leaked, because it made him look bad, because now he has to deal with it during an election year. That's what matters to him. Not the crime, not the ethics violation, not the betrayal of public trust, just the optics, just the politics, just how it affects him personally. And you know what? This is exactly what happened during Trump's first term. Remember that. The constant leaks, the backstabbing, the advisors and cabinet members all fighting with each other, everyone trying to be the last person standing, everyone trying to position themselves as the loyal one while everyone else got thrown to the wolves. It's the same pattern, the same dysfunction, the same toxic culture where loyalty matters more than competence, where covering up scandals matters more than preventing them in the first place, where the only rule is don't get caught. And if you do get caught, make sure somebody else takes the fall. This is not normal. This is not how a functional administration operates. This is not how people who actually care about governing behave. This is pure, unadulterated, self-serving corruption. And the fact that they're not even pretending otherwise anymore, the fact that they just openly shut down an FBI investigation into one of their own, that should terrify you. Because if they can do this, if they can just wave away credible bribery allegations with a press release, what else can they get away with? What else are they already getting away with that we don't know about yet? How deep does this actually go? Those are the questions we should be asking. Those are the questions reporters should be demanding answers to. Those are the questions Congress should be investigating. But instead, we're getting conspiracy theories and finger-pointing and a whole lot of nothing. The cover-up is real, folks. It's happening right in front of us. And Trump's inner circle is imploding because they know it. They know the truth. They know how bad this is. And they're all scrambling to make sure they're not the ones who end up holding the bag when it all comes crashing down. And here's another thing that's not getting enough attention. The timing of all this. We're in 2025, Trump's second term. He's already won re-election once. He's already proven he can survive scandals that would have destroyed any other politician. So why now? Why is the FBI running this operation now? Why are these allegations coming out now? Because the FBI doesn't wait around. If they had evidence, if they had probable cause, they would have acted sooner, which means this investigation probably started months ago, maybe even a year ago. And it's only coming to light now because someone leaked it. Someone inside the FBI or the DOJ decided the American people needed to know before the investigation got buried completely. And that leak, that's what's driving Trump crazy. That's what's causing the meltdown because now he can't control the narrative. Now he can't just sweep it under the rug quietly. Now it's out there, public, on the record, and no amount of spin can make it go away completely. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters. What you need to understand about this story, because there's a lot of noise, a lot of spin, a lot of people trying to distract you from the core issues. So let me make it simple. Point 1. Tom Homan allegedly took $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents in exchange for government contracts. That's bribery. Plain and simple. That's a federal crime. That's the kind of thing that should result in charges, prosecution, jail time. That's not a gray area. That's not a political disagreement. That's corruption. And the evidence? The FBI had it. They ran the operation. They have recordings. They have documentation. They have proof. This isn't some he said, she said situation. This is allegedly a slam dunk case, which is exactly why the Trump DOJ had to shut it down so fast. Because if this went forward, if charges were filed, if Homan actually faced trial, the whole thing would blow up even bigger. Because here's what would happen in a trial: discovery. That's the legal process where both sides have to share evidence. And if Homan's lawyers got to see all the FBI evidence, all the recordings, all the documentation, they might start asking questions like, who else was being investigated? What other operations were running? What other Trump officials were under scrutiny? And suddenly, you've got a trial that's not just about one guy taking 50 grand. You've got a trial that exposes systematic corruption across the entire administration. You've got testimony, you've got witnesses, you've got a media circus that goes on for months. And Trump can't afford that. Not in an election year. Not when his whole brand is built on being tough on crime and draining the swamp. So they killed it fast before it could metastasize into something bigger. Point 2. The Trump administration killed the investigation less than 24 hours after it became public. Think about that timing. September 20th, news breaks. September 21st, investigation closed. That's not normal. That's not how these things work. Federal investigations take months, years. Sometimes you don't just shut them down overnight unless you're trying to bury something. And the excuse? No credible evidence of criminal wrongdoing, except the FBI clearly thought there was credible evidence. That's why they ran the operation. That's why they were investigating. So either the FBI was completely wrong or the DOJ is lying. And given that the DOJ is run by Trump appointees who owe their jobs to him, yeah, I'm going to go with the lying option. This is obstruction, folks. This is using your political power to shut down an investigation into your own people. This is exactly the kind of thing Trump accused his opponents of doing. Exactly the kind of swamp behavior he promised to drain. And now he's doing it himself openly, without shame. And you know what's really messed up? Half the country doesn't even care. They've been so conditioned to believe that any criticism of Trump is just partisan attacks, that any scandal is just fake news, that they can't even recognize real corruption when it's staring them in the face. They see the FBI investigating a Trump official and they automatically assume the FBI is wrong. The FBI is corrupt. The FBI is part of some conspiracy, even though, and I really need to emphasize, this is Trump's FBI. He appointed the director. He controls the Justice Department. This isn't some holdover from the previous administration. This isn't some rogue agent going off script. This is his own people investigating his own people. And when they found evidence of crimes, he shut it down. That's the reality. That's what actually happened. And no amount of conspiracy theories or deflection can change that basic fact. Point 3. Trump's inner circle is completely falling apart over this. The leaks, the infighting, the backstabbing is all happening in real time. And here's why that matters. When people start turning on each other, when former allies start leaking damaging information, when trust breaks down completely, that's when the real truth starts coming out. We're seeing Pentagon advisors describe the White House as being in full-blown meltdown. We're seeing Trump allies publicly blame each other. We're seeing the kind of chaos that happens when people realize the ship is sinking and they need to save themselves. And historically, that's when the biggest revelations drop. That's when people start talking to prosecutors. That's when the whole house of cards collapses. So yeah, the infighting matters. It matters a lot because it means people are scared. It means they know how bad this is. It means they're positioning themselves for what comes next. And what comes next could be even worse than what we already know. Because think about it. If you're a Trump official right now, if you're someone who might be implicated in this or other scandals, you're looking around wondering who you can trust, who's going to leak next, who's going to throw you under the bus to save themselves. And that paranoia, that fear, it creates this toxic environment where everyone is looking out for number one. And in that environment, loyalty goes out the window. People start making deals, start talking to reporters, start positioning themselves as the whistleblower or the truth teller so they can survive whatever comes next. It's self-preservation, pure and simple. Now, let's talk about why this matters beyond just the immediate scandal. We're heading into an election year. Well, technically, we're in an election year. Primary season is heating up. General election campaigning is right around the corner, and this scandal just handed Trump's opponents, both within the Republican Party and in the general election, a massive gift. Because how do you run on law and order when your border chief allegedly took bribes? How do you run on draining the swamp when your Justice Department covers up corruption investigations? How do you claim you're fighting for the little guy when your administration is bought and sold by special interests? You can't. You just can't. The credibility is gone. The moral authority is gone. The whole narrative that Trump is some kind of anti-establishment outsider fighting the corrupt system, dead, finished, because he is the corrupt system now. He's running it, he's protecting it, he's benefiting from it. And voters notice this stuff. Even MAGA voters, even the most hardcore Trump supporters, they have limits, they have lines. And watching their guy protect corrupt officials while claiming to fight corruption, that's going to turn some people off. Maybe not all of them, maybe not even most of them, but enough to matter in a close election. Plus, and this is huge, Congress can't ignore this forever. Democrats are already calling for investigations. Some Republicans, the ones who aren't completely in Trump's pocket, are asking questions too. There's talk of subpoenas, hearings, testimony under oath, the kind of stuff that keeps scandals alive and in the news cycle. So this isn't going away. This is going to drag on for months, maybe longer. And every day it's in the news is another day Trump has to defend the indefensible. Another day his administration looks corrupt and incompetent. Another day, voters have to decide whether this is really who they want leading the country. And here's the kicker, the absolute kicker. This might not even be the worst of it because remember, the FBI doesn't run isolated operations. They don't investigate one person in a vacuum. If they were looking at Homan, they were probably looking at others too. And if the Trump DOJ shut this down to protect Homan, what else are they shutting down? What other investigations got killed before we ever heard about them? That's the real story here. Not just what we know, but what we don't know. Not just the corruption we can see, but the corruption that's still hidden. Because if they're willing to openly cover up a bribery scandal, if they're willing to shut down FBI investigations and issue blanket denials, then what aren't they willing to do? The answer, nothing. There's nothing they won't do to protect themselves. No line they won't cross. No norm they won't break. No institution they won't corrupt. And that, more than any single scandal, is what should keep you up at night. Because we're watching in real time as the rule of law crumbles, as accountability becomes optional, as justice becomes something that only applies to regular people, not the powerful, not the connected, not the ones with direct access to the president. So, yeah, Tom Homan allegedly took $50,000. The Trump DOJ buried the investigation. Trump's inner circle is eating itself alive, and we're all watching in real time as the whole rotten system gets exposed for exactly what it is: corruption, cover-ups, chaos. That's the Trump administration in 2025. That's what drain the swamp actually looks like when the guy who promised to drain it is the one filling it up instead. And the saddest part? A huge chunk of the country either doesn't believe it or doesn't care. They've been so thoroughly convinced that Trump can do no wrong, that any scandal is just a political attack, that they'll defend literally anything. Bribery? That's just smart business. Cover-ups? That's just protecting your people. Obstruction of justice? That's just fighting back against the deep state. The mental gymnastics are exhausting. But that's where we are. That's the country we're living in right now, where half the people see clear evidence of corruption and demand accountability, and the other half sees the same evidence and calls it fake news. Stay tuned, folks, because if you think this is bad, just wait. We're just getting started, and trust me, it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. Next time, we're diving into exactly who else might be involved in this bribery ring and why the cover-up might be even bigger than the crime itself. We're going to look at the money trail, the connections, the other Trump officials who might be sweating right now wondering if they're next. You're not going to want to miss it because this story is just the